Manhood, brought you in part by Reboot and Solomon's Bespoke.
This is Manhood, and thank you once again for staying with us on this podcast that we always aim to be better as brothers. This is really about manhood. And you know, I was discussing at one episode, and I want to mention it before we even start this particular conversation. When men speak aloud, they really get some sort of reprieve, some hindsight, you know, so a message somehow hearing sometimes your own voice can really send that message, and you get clarity in what sometimes you don't even understand at that particular time. Almost like how I'm rambling on at this particular moment, and I'll get clarity further in this particular show. I said that one for your Hanse before you even thought it. So thank you for staying with us. This is Manhood, and today's topic is turning adversity into an advantage, or turning adversity into advantage, an advantage. So to my right, Johanse IODK, Behavior Change Consultant. To his right, Acting Commissioner of Police, Junior Benjamin. Really happy to have you here. We're going to be depending on you to really take this topic to the very top. And to his right, Robert Vincent Charles, Attorney at Law. So I want to get straight into it because I don't think anybody tuned in to hear me ramble. I take any words from your mouth there, Johanse.
All right, okay. So when I heard the topic, I'm not claiming to be any religious or spiritual person, but the first thing that came to mind is, yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. No lie, that's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah. And I was wondering why, because the valley of the shadow of death, you could have a visual with that, but we know it could be metaphoric. And the valley of the shadow of death could be, you have issues with money, you have issues with your family, it could be issues in the nation, it could be issues where you live. The valley of the shadow of death really is a metaphor for adversity and life. Mm-hmm. And we know, I think everybody here old enough to know that life is not smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. But even though it's not smooth sailing, and we know this, is now, do we quarrel all the time? Do we complain all the time? And of course, I think the resounding answer is no, because for me, what is the advantage of quarreling? What is the use of quarreling? And if you know adversity is something that is inevitable, then we could kind of sometimes predict it or prepare for it. But even so, it makes sense to figure out a way to turn it into some kind of advantage.
Yeah. That's very powerful.
So, Commissioner, as he used that particular paragraph, as I walk through the valley, the shadow.
Valley of the shadow of death.
Valley of the shadow of death.
I
should correct, and that's something that I've recited many a time in my moments of fear. So I have a different meaning, I agree with you. There's levels of adversity in there, but the way I would interpret that valley is really based on temptation or fears that may lead you to be afraid of something or not lead you towards God. So if we're taking it from the context that comes from, I just wanted to throw that out there in my own adversity. Just putting that out there. But Commissioner, you're at the top.
Yeah.
And being at the top, a lot of times they say is a lonely place, and heavy is the head that wears the crown. And Trinidad and Tobago, what's always on everyone's lips, of course, is crime. And you're also a pastor. So, and so it really be interesting from your perspective, what that's like to always still remain grounded and do what needs to be done. Not what everybody seemingly wants or what they think is the right thing, where they can't understand, but for you to stay the course.
Yeah. First of all, it's just a privilege being here, being among men. I think that is important that we understand that just being a man is really understanding. There's a saying that says, when I was a child, I speak as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. 3 things that I think is so important in becoming a man: how you think, you understand, how you understand, and even how you speak. And therefore, when you put that together, one man call it SOT, you understand? You understand? Speak, understand, think. And he says SUT, systems under test. When you put those systems under test is where you're really going to see, you understand, how you turn those adversities into advantages. The scripture says, you know, how a man thinketh, so is he. So therefore, really and truly, in the way in which we turn adversities into advantages is really about really understanding that there is a mindset of the winner. You understand? And therefore, even as a man, you need to understand it starts with you having that mindset, knowing that, hello, it's not what happens to you that is really important, it's what's happening in you. And therefore, to me, that is how I continue to strive and to go above my challenges, because I allow what happens to me not to come into me, because I allow what is in me to be greater than what is happening to me.
How? How you do that?
Well, the scripture says it, that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So I allow him to be glorified in my life. So therefore, as I deal with people, my first thing is that I must be an expression of the God that I serve.
Okay.
So therefore, my life must speak to the very principle that I hold fast to. I tell people I am not a police officer who is a Christian. I am a Christian police officer. My Christianity defines my policing. So therefore, integrity comes from the very standard and the very things that I believe. And therefore, I am not going to compromise that. I will quickly give over my job tomorrow if I have to compromise my integrity. You know?
Commish, can I ask then, do you think that your faith makes you a better police officer?
Well, I think that my faith helped make me the quintessential police officer, because you see, even within the police service, we have an acronym that speaks to our core values. And I tell you, it's like your fingers. It's pride, you know, professionalism, respect, integrity, dignity, excellence. If you take it from the next way, professionalism, respect, integrity, dignity, excellence, you'll always come to integrity as the one in the center, and it's the one that has the highest in terms of your fingers. And I think that is exactly what it is. Integrity has to be the quintessential thing, and that must be based on a foundation. And there's no greater foundation than one's faith. It doesn't matter what religion, your faith is important. And once your integrity is based on a solid foundation, it's not easily shaken, you know.
I'm just thinking that somehow the closing, it feels like the closing segment there, you know, so yes, much, the nugget that was there as a drop mic after that I really like that acronym, you know, SUT. And it's something that I'll try and bring in my life. And you mentioned a lot about, you know, even when you spoke about winning. And I know, Vince, you know, you've read, you know, your man that follows, like, whether it be Goggins, and you gave me a book at one point, The Champion Mindset. Yes. So I know you've embraced a lot of that.
And I'm glad that you mentioned it, because part of, I'll reveal it on this show, part of my other life, I'm an attorney at law, but my private life, I'm a sports shooter. And there is a very strong community within that, and we travel. Just most recently, we were in Puerto Rico last week. I'm pleased to say I won the senior division.
Congratulations.
I have to give myself a little kudos.
Of course, deserved.
The short point of that is that a lot of people, even, let's just use sport as an example. They think, okay, there's a physical aspect to it, the repetition, you just have to keep doing it and you get better. Without understanding that 95% of excellence is your mindset. Mm-hmm. Everything else falls into place after that. And then now, in applying that principle to your professional life, that excellence really is your mindset. You know, if you wake up in the morning and determine this, today not going to be the day of feeling this, you're going to have a very bad day. If you wake up in the morning with gratitude and understand, just waking up in itself is a miracle. Mm-hmm. And you know, someone asks, how are you doing today? I say, fantastic. They say, well, why? I say, because I woke up. And a man, I'm going to say a vagrant, I don't like using that. Mm-hmm. One day he said that, he looked at me when I said it to him, and he said, And you must thank God that you're able to move around. And I thought to myself, that is a huge message. Outside of me trying to say, well, I woke up today, that's a bonus. Because you know when you cross 50, you have less in front of you than behind you, right? So time really starts to make sense to you of what you really want to achieve. But then he hit word, boss man, you could walk around. You understand? I thought to myself, you know, that's something that I added to my mantra of gratitude. So coming back to what you said, I'm going to say from my standpoint, I remember when you first became commissioner, you know, there was an opportunity for many people to say many things. And what I admired most was your silence. Yes?
Right.
And that you spoke when you needed to speak, as opposed to having to come out, and I'm not knocking previous commissioners or others, and having to inform the public about everything that happened, which to me and as an observer is unnecessary. Yeah? The important issues you came out and you spoke on. And I will say to you personally, I admire you for that. And I hope that for the balance of your attendance in this office, if it were left to me, it would be a long time. But that's beyond my pay grade. But that other people who, looking at, will understand that composure, excellence, pride, integrity ought to be at the forefront. And I think the country as a whole needs a lot more of that, you know. But
A lot more of which one? All 5 of the principles? Or
integrity
the
first.
part?
I think integrity first.
Why?
As the commissioner said, if you put integrity first, you will not allow anything negative. In fact, you're not allowed nothing. Anything that is negative cannot be around something that's full of integrity. It's like darkness cannot exist where there's light. We agree? So, in the absence of light, there is darkness. And there's that whole debate of what is darkness, what is light. But for me...
What is a debate?
Yeah, some people say that darkness doesn't exist. They say that darkness only exists because light is not there. And that is the way I say integrity is the light. And if light is there, there cannot be anything else that would detract from that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Or?
It does. Now, you know, I can get a little semantic, right? Now, integrity in itself, right? And I paraphrase, I'm not using the exact dictionary meaning, means something simple as doing what you say you're going to do.
Correct.
Right? So, if you're doing what you say you're going to do, doesn't necessarily imply light, you know. Because I could say, I go in and steal from somebody, and I steal from them. I am being integral to my word. If you understand where I'm coming from.
But is that integrity?
Yes, it is. Because I said I'm going to do something and I do it.
Okay.
Right. Now, sometimes we imply integrity as moral, right? And we put values to integrity. So that's why I ask that, because integrity in itself, and we stand in, and I'll tell you why I'm highlighting this, because, and this is my experience in Trinidad, right? Most of us not really integral, you know, right? If we talk about, let's start with something, my experience with workmen. They say you're going to do something and you didn't do it. They say this fete starting at 4 o'clock, but everybody reach at 6 o'clock. That's not integral. If you understand where you're coming from. And I can't remember what's the opposite of integral, right? But us being not true to our word has become part of our culture. So I ain't going yet whether it's good or bad, what we being integral to. But if we can keep our word to what we say. So we say we're going to do something and we do it. Not we imply, well, it's Trinidad time. Well, you know how it is. Well, you know how we are. Well, you know how people are. That is excuses for integrity. So before we even say whether we're right or wrong, is our ability to keep our word. And that way, when we face with adversity, because many times if we kind of wishy-washy, or we could fall easily to something and change our minds at the last minute. That is what brings us down. That's what could allow, and I'm using your words now, the darkness to come in. Tell me.
Because the thing is, I think there can be, everybody might have different shades of when we say integrity, what it means. Within the police service, and this is, and I more subscribe, and I do agree that it is about being true to your word, because that is one side. But I think that the real meaning of integrity is what we say, doing the right thing, even when no one is watching.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
that
was
is-
my understanding of it in
that
that
was the
context, yeah.
definition. It also has a definition that is, doing the right thing because it is the right thing to do. Those are two definitions that we share within the police service to guide us as it relates to integrity. And we're saying if you're saying that, then you ought to allow that your words must match your actions. So you're right where that is concerned. But I think that we must start from the right perspective in terms of when we say integrity, that is about doing the right thing, even when nobody is watching. So that when we talk about a person in terms of integrity, there are certain words that has positivity with it. It is one of those words that is used within a positive mindset, and we expect that when a person say that I'm a person of integrity, that person is also doing something that would more or less bring about a good. Now, there are some people that, again, as you say, they go and do the thieving, and yes, they go and thief. Again, I think that is being truthful. You
Correct.
understand?
Correct.
Being
Correct.
truthful and being a person of integrity
Is two different things.
So I again, we could play the words, but I think
The
that
semantics of it.
yeah. But at the end of the day, I think that when we talk about true integrity, it speaks to a person who really understands what is right and doing it because you are actually living it. It is about a lifestyle, and it's about a mindset that understands that, hello, I will not compromise. I will be true to who I am, even though no matter what the cost. And as a police officer, I've been there. I've been there where they would have asked me, to do things, and I decided I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am. And therefore, and whatever was the consequences, I was willing to stand it. I was thrown from one area to another, and I mean, it was painful. But at the end of the day, I stayed the course, and today I'm here.
Okay.
Yes,
What if you could give us a idea, what was the process? How we was able to stay the course? Because I know you said it got a little difficult, and sometimes when you want to stay your course, but things get a little difficult, sometimes people waver.
Yeah.
How were you able to stay integral?
Well, that's the thing. So I as I said, I always believe in my faith. So I'll be very honest. It was very young. I was very young just started as a probationer, and we went out on a particular a beat, and it was both of us, myself and another officer who was probably in the batch before, and I saw an argument taking place while I was on one side dealing with tickets and so on, and I saw an argument with this officer and another lady, and she was saying, I didn't come up the one-way street. He was saying, well, yes, you did, and he gave her a ticket. She said, well, I'm not paying my ticket, and I'm going to the court, and I will tell them that I didn't come up the one-way street. And he said, well, that's you understand? I saw you, and he walked away, and we went up going back to the station, and he said, well, you know what, Benji, you will have to come and say that you saw the woman coming up the one-way street to support me. I said, excuse me? So I didn't see you. I didn't see that woman coming up no one-way street, and I mean, I said, I'm sure if you said that she's coming up, I'm sure that would be sufficient. He said, no, you need a witness, so you have to come. And I was like, I'm not so sure. No. So I said, no, I can't do that. So he carried me back and he reported me to the sergeant, and the sergeant said, well, yeah, Benji, I think you need to go. I said, Chief, forgive me, but I have no problem, I'm going, but I'm going to just exactly say what I was doing. I was up on the next side doing nothing, but I didn't see anything. But, if the officer said that it happened, I am saying he's a man of his word. He said, that's the thing, I can't deal with you all, you kind of people. And he sent me back from the traffic section into back to doing shift. And I had a serious challenge with the shift. But I went back to the shift and I stayed the course. My point is, at the end of the day, I want to make sure when I sleep that, hello, I must be at rest. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happened to me. Let me know that I've done the right thing. Because at the end, I have to stand before God, and I want to make sure that I hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. So for me, that is what I'm talking about in terms of integrity. That's how I stay the course. Because to me, it is about understanding that there is more to life than living, just as there is more to death than dying.
And with that one, of course, we have the integrity of the show and myself to keep us true to time. And it's about that time to take us to the break. But just before we go to the break, Commissioner, where's our gentleman now?
But I don't know what to say.
I know, I didn't expect you to, but I mean, it'd be remiss of me not to ask. So we take a short break. This is Manhood. The topic is turning adversity into advantages.
Hi, this is Manhood, and our theme today is turning adversities into advantages. And we are back.
We're back. So, Commissioner, I want to read this quote, as we're talking about adversity and turning it into advantages. Arnold Schwarzenegger had this quote, and I'm glad I found it. It says, "Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strengths. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, that is strength." I thought that was pretty apt and powerful for a lot of the conversations that we're having, and it reminds me of when I was competing myself and broke my foot, and I was in bed for about 3 months. Since then, at that point, I went through a depression almost about not being able to do the little things, like even go to the bathroom. I had to get help or take a shower. And you recognize how important simple things are, like your ankle, being able to move a step. And it resonated with me when you spoke, both of you spoke at the start, and you mentioned even about the little things or massive things like getting up and about being grateful for those blessings. And now, most mornings, I can't say every morning, I try to even though I might feel somewhat stressed, because sometimes you get up stressed about something that has to happen, and you remind yourself, wow, I've had the privilege of getting up this morning. I have the privilege of getting up with AC. I have the privilege of getting up being safe, that there's something to eat in the fridge, that there's a vehicle. It mightn't be a Mercedes-Benz, but there's a vehicle that I can jump in and go to work, that I can get off the bed, that there's running water, just things that I try to affirm within myself, that to realize, my grandmother would always say, when somebody eating fig, somebody else eating fig skin. And it's just to remind yourselves that even as someone pointed to me, as you mentioned, a homeless person, that in Trinidad and Tobago, that even though, unfortunately, we still have a lot of homeless people and people who are in need, in comparison to some countries, they can still have access to water. They still have access to something, even if it's, I hate to say discarded, but it's still something that they can eat, where there are countries where they don't even have that.
Correct.
So there's somebody that's always worse off than you are. And it's about reminding yourself of those blessings and turning that into, in my case, by reminding myself of those moments that I couldn't do for 3 months, to get up and walk, I can now turn that into, instead of getting up stressed, to turn it around and now say, oh, okay, be happy. Turn that feeling into that negative into a positive and move on with my day. So again, turning adversity into an advantage to really push through the day and being grateful for the little big things of being able to walk.
That's a good point. And it reminds me of what you said in the first segment. It was SUT, S-U-T, systems under trial. And I think the under trial is the important part to really know. Because how we would know we're strong if we have some kind of adversity? How we would know the systems we come up with, or the philosophy, or even our values? How we know that have anything if we're not tested by it? Now, sometimes, and I could say for me personally, sometimes I go, next test,
testimony.
Right? I leave school already, but we need school of life. So it have a test every day. Now, a test don't necessarily have to be something always difficult or strenuous, because the better system you have in place, the better you can deal with it, the stronger you are. But I believe, and sometimes even with my clients, when I say, there's a test you might have to endure, it is like, oh gosh, a next test, but that's life. But I think the key is having good systems and refining the systems, and you need to, again, to know we need to refine it, is having a test, and then we have a good system, we put in a proper philosophy, so therefore now we could stand up with integrity.
Yep. And one thing I want to add to the conversation as well is that it's something that is mutually exclusive. You can't be grateful and yet complaining at the same time. And that's the beauty about,
Commissioner, I want to say that to that camera.
you cannot be grateful and yet complaining at the same time. And I think that's a challenge because we're not taking time to be thankful. Because a lot of times life has a way that it causes us to become very selfish and myopic, where we always see what we don't have, and we're not grateful for what we have. And I think as men, it is important. And he said, when I was a child, I speak as a child, I understood. He said, but when I became a man, I put away those things. We have to start to think as men, where we start to become grateful, and grateful for the little things in life, grateful for the fact that, hey, you're able to see, you're able to walk, you're able to, to lift your hands. These are some simple things in life. And when you get to that point, you don't have time to complain. In fact, you become more and more, grateful. And you at the same time, you always want to see, when you are blessed, you want to know how you can be a blessing. And that's really when life becomes more meaningful. Life is not about you. It is about the value that you bring to it. And therefore,
Service.
my joy is really not just being a police officer, but what is the value that I'm bringing to Trinidad and Tobago as the Commissioner of Police. And therefore, it doesn't matter what, as I tell people, it doesn't matter, the adversity that comes to me. I believe as the Commissioner of Police, I'm to be an umbrella for my officers. So let everything else hit the top. I must cover my officers, and they must feel protected by me being there, turning that adversity now into advantages that they can be sheltered.
You said that, and it reminded me of that quote. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Do you think that we've as a people, we've sort of lost that, or in some way, shape, or form, that we're always kind of asking, what can I get? What can I get from the country? And never really asking myself, how can I be part of that change? How can I do more to bring about this positive change in this nation? Whether it be the government's duty at that particular point, but where you can say, what can I do to say, take maybe $20 out of my pocket and buy someone who's homeless something to eat? Or, you see some people who put some sand and gravel in a pothole. I'm not saying that it's your duty to do that, but in terms of to be part of the change that you want to see. Do you think that in some way we've lost that and become more of a handout type nation?
Just to jump in, I think that we have matured in our selfishness, insofar as we're looking outward for answers when we really should be looking inside. And by that, I mean that if you can't take the time to fix the things about yourself that you dislike the most, when the world holds that mirror up to you, that's all you're going to see. And if you spend a little time on yourself, you'll find that you're then in a position to help. And you become a better person for helping. I mean, one of my pet peeves, I'm going to admit, is the beggars. And not the down and out beggars, is the ones that do it for a living, right? And that is my challenge. That is when you talked about, adversity and whatnot, etc. Because every day I fight with myself. And it's not that I don't want to give, but I see in the fact that I'm enabling you when those who are really destitute, have a problem. I have no problem buying somebody food. But the handing over the money until someone recently...
What's the problem with people who's beg for a living? What problem you have with that?
I don't have a problem. You know what I have a difficulty with? I have a difficulty with those who have seen come and ask for food or for work. And saying, hey, no problem. Now, obviously, I'm not going to bring a stranger into my home otherwise. I've done it before. I said, okay, boss, you want to work? Meet me at this spot, pick them up. Turned out he was not the most reputable person to have around me, etc. Buying food, not a problem. But there's certain places that you go to and you're seeing the same people over and over. And then one day I'm driving up Maraval and I see one of the local guys dressed to the T's. Obviously, heading out to take a little lime. Or again, I may have been judging him. But I have a difficulty with that.
What's the difficulty? You say it's a pet peeve. And I'm asking this for a reason. What's the difficulty with
The
it?
pet peeve is me. And that's where I've come to understand. It's my own sense of judgment that I have to work out. Because that person's doing what they do. It's my misunderstanding or judgment of their social situation that I need to address.
And that's the thing, you know, because everybody deals with adversity differently.
Yes.
Right? I mean, and we talk about integrity before, right? Is that people come up with, and sometimes we judge because we not living their life, right? We judge how they do things and why they do things. And sometimes that judgment is where, and this is my opinion, and not to say I don't do it either, I'm working on it too about judging people, is that I think is misdirected energy, because we can't really change them now, right? Now, we don't have to like it, right? But using the energy to judge them versus is either you get them the money or you don't get them the money, right? It's when you meet adversity, it's either you're dealing with it or you're not dealing with it. But sometimes having the judgment around it, or even the imagination, because many times sometimes we imagine things based on what we see. We imagine it based on who we are and our backgrounds, etc. But it may not be the correct thing. So I think grounding ourselves, and this is, I think, is a problem in Trinidad, and I could talk about it a little more after, but grounding ourselves in reality gives us the best position to deal with any adversity. So if I have a problem with something, the truth is, this person begging for whatever reason is either giving them or not giving them.
You know, just something I want to share. You know, a lot of times people see the finish line and they don't see the fight. And even when you mention that, or I mention about getting up and about people in different countries not having certain things, and you then mention about judgment. And I'm sure there are people who will be looking at this particular episode at that time and going, oh, all they're privileged, or they could talk like that. And people don't see, again, they only see the finish line. They don't see the fight. They don't see that no matter what, they might see the commissioner and say, what you know about anything? You are no traffic, you rolling wrong in two Prado or whatever it is now. And
3.
3. It could be 3, yeah. And all of these things. But they don't know, Commissioner, what, as a human, the other side of things that you go through, that you still bleed, you still hurt, all of these things still affect you, and that you have the weight of, even within your moral compass, that you have the weight of what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of one of the biggest topics on your shoulders. And, you know, Vince had said at the start about commending you on the silence and what that takes, that to go through that adversity, to be able to deal with that. Maybe when you want to say something, you know, someone might have given you a phone call and you really want to say, if only all you knew it, but based on what you stand for or don't stand for and the portfolio, you have to remain resolute. And again, people see Johan saying a nice jacket, you know, Vincent is nice shirt, me with, a crack watch, but still, you know, at one point it was a nice expensive watch. But they don't understand that we in ourselves have those choices. We in ourselves go through adversity on many levels. And the fight to get where we got 20 or 30 years ago, whenever it is that you were on the beat, to where you are now, seeing that climb again, persons wouldn't see that. They only see what is there now and judge based on that. Mm-hmm. And to come back to what you said, if you just permit me, just yesterday, you know, serendipitous that I saw it, where a guy saw a snake in fire and grabbed the snake out the fire. The snake then bit him, and as he got bit, he threw the snake back in the fire, right? As a reaction, he got a stick, then took the snake back out the fire, right? A guy walked up to him and said, well, that snake bit you. Why did you even try to save him at that point? He said, it's in the snake's nature to bite, but it's in my nature to do good.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to you that no matter what comes around you, that adversity, those challenges, your nature must still remain true to who you are as Vince, to who we are as a people in general.
If you have integrity. You understand the circular part of it? Mm-hmm. Just your answer, you had said earlier on when we were talking about growth and change. the best way for growth, I feel, is through adversity. It presents you with the opportunity to change that about you for growth to happen. And then also, as you change your mindset and you have those, coming back to, again, the acronym, when you have these systems, you fall back to the level of your highest level of training. And the little things that you do that become the norm, if you fall back to that, every time you raise that bar, it increases and you become a better person. So on a national level, we talked about being selfish. Well, I indicated I felt we were selfish, but if we as a nation, we started to take pride in what we do, that has to resonate, if you understand. Somebody walking on your road smiling because they've had a great day is infectious. They hold a door open. You let somebody out in traffic, look back and see how many other people do it. And that's what I'm saying. It's the random small acts that incrementally change the greater good. But it has to start from inside. That's my humble view.
I agree with you. And that's where sometimes the effort comes, because it is within your nature, right? Nature implies what you're born with. And there's an argument. Well, it's not really an argument anymore, but what shapes us? Nature versus nurture, right? Nurture is our environment, what is instilled in you, etc. And nature is what you're born with. And there are many arguments say that people born inherently good. So I'm not debating that. But the nurture part is important, because it's what is put inside of you, right? At a certain age, you could have a choice with that, with what you feed your mind with. But before that is what is put into you. And as a nation, so going as a nation now, is that whatever we play on the radio, play on the media, we say all the time, we put on social media, that becomes what the nurture is, right? So we are a product not only of what we're born with, but of what being put into us. So forget, I'm not going on a granular level, not necessarily what families do or what religions do or what groups do, versus the overarching sentiment of what being put into us. So if right now we are a nation, are using your words as a little more selfish, that means somewhere along the line selfishness was put into, or we allowed selfishness to be injected in us on a majority level. So I think too is to identify where and what are we being programmed with, so that we understand what's in us, the nurture, to know how we deal with adversity.
But I believe at the same time, if we take out a picture here now, and I bring that picture, in that picture, who do you think would be the first person you focus on in that picture?
How are you looking?
Exactly. And I'm just saying, that's just how much we are selfish in terms of, if you look good in that picture, well, okay, we can stick that up. If you're looking bad in that picture, hey, don't even put that up here at all. Crazy. There's a picture in my batch, and my batch, everybody looking good. And in that picture, I don't know what happened. Nobody told me. The star on my forehead cap was one way, and everybody looking so good. I every time I see it, I just turn on that picture. I'm not even putting it up. The point is that I'm just so upset about that picture, and I wish every time I could just change it. But the point is, sometimes you focus on yourself. Many times you see accidents, and it's always the driver never die,
Yeah.
Because somehow
They pull
the
away.
passenger, he would pull away to save him his own. By nature, we are selfish beings, because we want to preserve me and myself. And I think sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves. That's exactly the society that we live in. And therefore, even as we talk about giving is not something that is just natural, you understand? It is something that sometimes you have to literally train yourself to be a true giver at all times. Because again, when you're giving small, and I go get me in my church, we normally give. So I give $100. Problem. I even give 1,000. Small thing. I remember one time, my dad gave. We had about $10,000 that we had to give out, because how we do it. And when I said, boy, wait. Then becoming a millionaire on me, boy. I wonder what you're doing with this. I would say it started to change when the money started to increase. And I'm saying that because, when we have to give, and there is something when we we give out of you know what you have. You know, I give out my wants, but when I have to give out of my need, that's when you really know if a person is a true giver. And giving to people and so on, I think that is important that we appreciate that we were born as men to give. You know, the scripture says, "Give and it shall be given back." And I think sometimes that, you see, that giving is not an easy thing. You know, and as you give, I'll just drop this here. As a man, if you even look in the scriptures, it says, "Husband, love your wife." He never said for the wife to love the husband. You have to give that love. As you give that love, you understand? He said, "Hey, wives, you know," he said, "Obey your husband." But he said, "Hey, it is the man to love." So as you give that love, what is love? And that is the question. What is love? Is love a feeling? Or love brings about a feeling? I'm saying when you understand what this love is all about, you understand? You recognize that, hey, love is about giving sometimes till it hurts. For God so loved that he gave his son, and his son died. I'm just saying that when we really kind of understand this whole idea of giving, it is knowing that sometimes you give it and a lot of people might not even say thanks for the gift that is given. But you give it anyway because you understand it's about purpose. It's about understanding what I'm doing is I'm giving it to make a difference. So then even if I give the vagrant the money and he use it to buy drugs, you understand? When I give it, I'm not giving it to get it back. I'm giving it.
You don't give to get.
Because I'm giving it because I know by doing this, I am giving it with the good intention that you would use it. And I tell them that, hey, use this for a right purpose. But when I give it, I give it. You understand? And hello, I don't look back and say, hey, you better use it. Hey, if I give it, I give it. So I think that sometimes, you know, we have to.
Now, is that coming from a spiritual and religious point of view? Because why I ask is because let's just say someone have no spiritual beliefs, right? And you're giving them, and let's say they have a, let's call it rational mind, right? Everything is logic and everything is, let's say, science-based. And so if I give this, let's use the example of vagrant, and I know he or she going to buy drugs with it, then why should I do it? That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I'm saying this because understanding that many different people comprise the nation, right? And you made a good point about, quote unquote, everybody is selfish, which I agree with, but there's a theory called functional selfishness, which is if everybody working towards, there could be their self-interest, but the self-interest have mutual understanding, or they're working towards a goal. Let's say a football team, everybody want to win, and for different reasons. I want to be on TV, I want girls, I want wherever it is, but everybody want to win. Then it's still selfish, but it's working together. So I'm asking that because how would we then bridge a gap to help someone who maybe not coming from a spiritual or religious background even want to give?
And that's the thing. I think that there's some things that, again, you have to, I think every person, you know when something is not right, you know. You could know that, hey, even though I'm not doing this, hey, you think you should have still given him the money, you know, in that, because there's something in you that is inherently good that makes you know. Even though you might want to fight it and say, no, you justify it, but inside of you, you know when there is that tendency, because I believe that there's a part of us that connects with that good in terms of what is right and what is wrong. Okay. And I'm saying you don't have to train a man, you don't have to teach a man. It is all about a person having that sense, that consciousness that it is there. And I think that, you know, whether a person, based on their religion, it nurtures that more than the other, but it is there to every man. I've seen where persons hold up a person and say, after you take the money, you have money to go, I take that. But and you think, yes, and I've seen where, you know, persons had the opportunity to shoot up and they just decide to run. I'm saying there's so many, even in the worst of men, there's some measure of good. You understand? Just as in the good of men, there's bad. And
I know we need to go to a break. And I know you know, as you said there about, you see that justification where you know right from wrong, but somehow it's that justification that takes you either one way or the other. to make that decision, where you could still decide to shoot that person, or you could still decide to go with that woman, or whatever the case may be, is a dangerous thing. And how do you sometimes take that process that leads to that thought, that adversity that you would have gone through, to an advantage, to make you stronger, to forge through? Because doing the right thing is never easy. It's always easy to, for the most part, it's easier to make the wrong choice. It's the challenge is doing the right thing. But we're talking about turning adversity into an advantage. We take a short break.
This is manhood. The topic for today is turning adversity into an advantage. So, before the break, we were talking with the commissioner. He was giving us some insight into selfishness as a nation, etc. But I think the real story is we don't get the commissioner of police with us very often, and it'd be great to hear from your perspective. You know, your journey from PC to commissioner, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, I started, I'm from Tobago, and I joined as a special reserve officer because my dad was a special reserve officer. And it's so good that when you're talking manhood, that men, we have to understand that there's so many young people looking at us, and we can be models and mentors. And I also say multipliers. My dad was that type of person to me. And because he was, you know, a special reserve officer, I wanted to just be a special reserve officer. And I started, my life has always been one that is full of challenges. So I struggled in school. I couldn't read too much. I was not bright in spelling and that kind of stuff. And I tell people I would come 23rd in tests, you know, 20th. In fact, I actually broke a record. I came 32nd. Out of 33, you know, and I mean, the belt actually told me that was not a good position. So
the belt in school or the belt at home?
At home, in fact, yeah. But I struggled, and it's not that I wasn't willing. It was just tough. But it's in the midst of that, I did common entrance, and I actually often said I did the English part, and I was reading so slow that when I did the exam, that I was like about number 10 or somewhere out of 30. And then I heard time up, turn the paper, can't look back. I was like, I started to cry. I was like trying to get myself. Then I did the math, had a little time, and I had to answer 20 questions by guess, any, mini, minor, more. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I came out there and I was shattered, you know. And I remember going to this guy. I know I was dunce, but he well dunce. I said, hey, partners, how you did it? He said, man, I busted up, man. Like, you know, right after I went into the car and my mom asked me, how was it? I said, Mommy, I busted up too, man. I said, busted up. And I mean, I prayed that time, and really and truly, that was really the change in my life, because I promised God, I said, Lord, if I could only pass for my first or second choice, I'll serve you the rest of my life. And so said, so done. I passed for my second choice. And
with eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
on one section. One section.
That's not a technique we're going to use.
Yes, I don't want to subscribe that at all. But I made it, and I promised, and I remember the Sunday, I actually just decided, hey, look, Lord, I'm going to just give my life after that. And I had ups and downs, but, you know, that was the turning point. The bottom line for me is that I continued to struggle in school. I went to Scarborough Signal Hill and had my spelling challenges and reading challenges. But I was very determined, and I think that for me is what I want to even tell persons. It doesn't matter, you know, how you start. I actually did the exam for Special Reserve and actually failed the exam that day, went home crying, and then while I was home, you know, my mom said to me, hey, if God has something for you, nobody could take it away. And then not too long after that, I got the call, said, Mr. Benjamin, I'm calling you from the headquarters. We have 33 people, we need 35, and you're the highest failure, come back up. So I got in as the highest failure in 1989.
That's interesting. The highest failure.
Highest failure. And the highest failure went back to Tobago in 2021 as the senior superintendent in charge of the division. And now the highest failure is speaking to you from this position. And again, I use it to encourage persons. It's not about how you start the race, it's how you finish. It's understanding that life is about destiny and purpose. When I joined the police service, I was 29 years of age. There's no way I could see myself even reaching anywhere. But I think when God has a plan and a purpose for your life, I'm here and I'm still have about 6 more years again. And I'm just saying the stories could keep going. But in the midst of that, there's a lot of adversities that took place. I'm also an attorney at law. So even in my second year of law, I failed my whole year outright, and I was like, how could this happen? So discouraged, and I had to pick myself up and keep going again until I reach here. And so I tell people, success is not just a destination; it's a journey, and it's all about doing small things correctly, consistently, and then you get there. So I'm grateful.
Well, they said that success is a number of failures. And you hear even the greats, Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, and these people will tell you it's through those failures they made adjustments. Yeah. And had they not failed, they wouldn't have known how to correct it to be the success that they are now. And like you said, to the person you reported to back then when you were on the beat, and the person who asked you to basically testify or to lie, to witness for him, where are they now?
Strong words.
But that's in effect, there's no beating around the bush. It's a lie. And so the other thing, that if not is quintessential to this conversation here today, adversity to advantage. That there's that story. And I hope that the persons, being in Trinidad and Tobago don't hear the part of the failures and then say, oh God, well, this is the man now leading us as the Commissioner of Police, that they understand the story and they understand it's because of those failures you were able to pivot and adjust and learn and become the person you are today, which is the upstanding citizen, first of all, and secure and focused and resolute in your beliefs that drives you, and that spirituality is something that I can say on this show that I can only be on board with, and it's as Vince had pointed out just now, really really happy to have you here, and so I'd be really interested to understand what you think, or how would you describe what a man should be or what a man is?
Well, and that's a really good question, because I think being a man is really about not just in terms of growth, because each of us grew through processes, but I think being a man is really understanding the whole idea of being matured. And that's what I'm saying. When I became a man, I put away childish things. There is a level of maturity that goes into a man, because you can be 35 years and still be a boy as far as I'm concerned. You understand? Because it's not about the quantity of years, but about the quality of experience. And manhood is about having that experience so that you are able to make that difference in terms of knowing that you are called and understanding your purpose. And as you understand that purpose, it doesn't matter where you are in life. I think that you enter into that manhood when you enter into that bigger understanding of your true purpose.
Powerful stuff. And we can't close without the obvious. You are the Commissioner of Police after all, and we have you here today. There's always this big divide, where the all you're too wicked and all these other things come out from, and it's almost like it's an us against them, and in that clarity of that it's not. It's not an us against them. You're doing what you need to do, and persons, if they're doing the right thing, I'm assuming they won't have then the altercations that affect their ways of thinking at this point. But it's more, Vince, the first time you were on this show, we spoke about laws that still exist in this country that
Yes.
people don't know, and yet still, if it was
Enforced.
would be problems.
Old colonial laws like it's illegal to bathe wash clothes in the Maraval River and these sort of things. Now, to be fair,
Yeah.
I didn't go back to see if it
Yeah.
had been repealed, or I doubt very much, because they would have passed a piece of legislation repealing those sorts of things. I mean, even the people talk about marijuana being legal. We spoke about that. It's not. It's decriminalized, simple possession, these sorts of things, etc. I would like to see moving forward the large number of pieces of legislation that have passed in the last 10, 15 years. It gets confusing, right? I look forward to where pieces of legislation become a little bit clearer, and the opportunity might be used to repeal some of the old archaic laws that really make policing harder, that would affect our things should they be enforced. And I think that anybody moving forward who would take the time to do that would assist both in good policing and also civilians be able to understand their role and function in society, But just to touch on what you said, I mean, remember the all you're too wicked, etc. I think there is a certain expectation from the civilian standpoint as to what we expect from the police. But on the flip side, there's certain things we have to appreciate that we're expected to do. You can't be bad talking the police, but yet in times of crisis, that's what you want. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a give and take. I don't know, Commissioner, what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, well, the reality, first of all, I'm the type of person, before I even look at people, I look at myself. And I'm saying, even when people say that, the truth is, at times, I think as police officers, we do things that cause people to want to say that. And therefore, I am big on customer service. We have to increase and really get big on the way we treat people. The issue to me in Trinidad and Tobago is not a matter of reduction of crime, but it is about the fear of crime and how we deal with the fear of crime. There was one particular commissioner of police. Under that particular commissioner of police, there was an increase in crime, but there was a reduction in terms of the fear of crime. You understand? And I'm saying that's what we want. We want the fear of crime to reduce. And how do we do that? It is about how we treat the public. And therefore, I'm saying when the public recognize that there is, a police officer that cares for them, when they understand that, hey, I know that I could go to the police service or the police station and know that I'm going to get quality service. That, hello, hey, that... And this is what we want to inculcate, that within a week time, you get a call telling you exactly what's the latest with that particular offense that you came and report. And you start to see that kind of thing. You recognize now, the police now, the police officers care about it. Even though we didn't solve the crime, but the fact that you're showing that level of customer service. So I'm saying these are the things that is going to cause people to really build that legitimacy, where it's not just about us policing people, but people want the police to police them. And that's what we want. And that's the level that we want to get the police service to. And therefore, it is important for us to start to treat the public. So for me, as I hear people say that, it tells me, first of all, there's more work for me to do to win you across so that you will not say that. Secondly, is that I recognize that as police officers, it is important, really. People do not care how much you know unless they know how much you care. We have to start to have a more caring police service. It is not just about locking up people, because at the end of the day, I believe the heart of the problem is a problem of the heart. I lock you up, you go to the prison, and you come back out worse, because inside there is nothing changing the heart. How do I change that heart? I change the heart by, one, as it says, when I tell you about my success, I impress people. But when I make people successful or winners, you understand, I impact them. We need police officers to impact the lives of other young people and make them winners. We have to see how we can make them winners. talking to the young men, getting them involved in more positive things. The police service has to be part of that community partnership, and therefore it's important that we start to really seek to mentor other persons. And I think when we start to see that new breed of police officer and we bring in that new normal, I think that you're going to just see the very way in which the society view the police is changed. And for me, it is about making the police service what I call an employer of choice, where persons want to be part of it because of the value that we bring to Trinidad and Tobago.
Not because they could put on a siren and bust through the traffic. Or park wherever they want.
Thank you.
Would you say commissioner as your legacy? Like what is the legacy you want to leave behind? If not even, it doesn't even have to be in the police service.
Yeah, my legacy is clear, that I just want people to say, that hello, he was a caring commissioner, you understand? And that's why for me, my mantra has been, I must be a commissioner for all. It doesn't matter, for the special reserve officer to the regular police officer to the civilian that is in the police service, to Trinidad and Tobago, to every creed and race, to the poor and the rich, everybody. I must be their commissioner. I must be the commissioner for even the person that we lock up in the station. I must be his commissioner. And therefore, it must be a commissioner for all, seeking the interests of those persons and ensuring fairness and justice for all.
What you're saying there, I like it. And the funny thing is that we've been hearing that forever, that put people first. I hear in that sense, whether it is in business, right? Your human resource, right? Check on the wellness of your people. Now we're hearing it, and for some reason, I don't know why we're not seen as the important part. Even this morning on the police segment on CNC 3 morning segment, they spoke about community policing, right? And the importance of it. And without our people, we don't have anything,
Correct.
Right? And I'm saying that because whether you're in the police service, no matter what field you are in, your customers, without your customers, you have nothing. And I don't know, I'm not too sure why we're not realizing that. But even in that sense, I like what you say about looking inside. And once one person starts to do something better, it could give an example to others. And it goes back to who you are inside, whether it is you're dealing with adversity, because how you deal with adversity, people will see. Right, and therefore that's part of the customer service. That's part of putting people first. So I agree with you. Work on yourself, right? But also consider what others might be going through.
So we have to get to that point where we're closing thoughts. But I want your commissioner just for a moment to take your hat off. I know you did already, but to just say it in terms of take yourself out of the commissioner of police and. In your experiences in life as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, or in terms of even your years of police servicing, what if you had to let your hair down? I mean, I know you keep using things that are clearly, something that's a true statement, because you're only human. You might want to watch the public of Trinidad and Tobago and say, all are too wicked. You stop playing your. Or is there something you feel outside of the uniform that you'd really want to communicate to the public of Trinidad and Tobago to for lack of a better term, be better?
Well, probably there are a couple of things that I would want to see in terms of being better. But for me, I don't know. Life is always about, it's not just about what you face, but to me, I always recognize the importance is that in order for me to remain grounded, my wife, one time I went out and I was thanking everybody, as I was, reaching this point. And I thank everybody and forgot to thank my wife, and saying,
what?
So, man, when I came back.
Sounds like you need that lawyer.
The ring's still on your finger, so we're glad to see.
Yeah. She said, kite. I was like, well, I said, kite? Yeah, she said, kite. So I don't understand. I said, well, probably kite is a nice thing, I said, thanks. By the time I went in the car, she's not talking as well. So I said, when you say kite, she said, let me tell you, kite never fly by itself. Right? It's always need a thread to keep it to the ground. And I want you to understand, you're forgetting the thread that's keeping you to the ground. So I want to recognize the importance of, that team spirit, and I think that strong family really brings strong communities. Strong communities is going to bring strong countries, and we need to get back to the family. We need to, once again, especially as men, we need fathers to stand up in their families and really understand that the part that you play, even though we have single mothers, they can't take the role of the fathers. And as men, we need to stand up and be counted. We need to do our part, because when I look at the number of persons in the prisons, how many of them are fatherless? How many of them grew up without their fathers? And therefore, I think if they, as true men and manhood, as we talk about, if we really want to see a change in our society, we need our men to stand up and be counted in the family. And I think we're going to see a big change in terms of what the future holds with our country.
I know you mentioned about family there, and I could only imagine your position when you reach a certain status, or a lot of people who are around you always remain around you because they think you can give them something. So I could imagine, the calls for, hey, I want to get an FUL, or I could get, probably one of the number one questions, or it's always something that they want from you. How in that adversity do you want to turn that to an advantage? Just in closing, really, and how do you remain true to not just yourself, not just as the commissioner in terms of what the portfolio demands and the office, but also to yourself?
Yeah, one of the things for me, while I serve as a leader, I recognize that a lot of people will come because of their own personal interests. So I really keep people, in terms of my purpose. So even if you come for that, I tell you that, hello, I'm not going to, give you a lie. I tell you, look, I'm not dealing with that. I tell people I'm not dealing with that right now unless it's absolutely necessary. I have a police service to run, and the police service is not FUL. A police service is understanding that I have officers. I have officers that are hemorrhaging. I have officers that are bleeding. I have officers that needs a leader, and therefore they need tools. I need to see about my officers, and therefore I seek to put first things first. It's important as a leader that you prioritize, that you put things in order, in perspective, and even as you seek to deal with that, what I try to do is to be true to who I am. I think that many times we try to want everybody to love us. I'm not here to be loved. I'm not here to be appreciated by people. I'm here to do a job. And therefore, that job is my priority. I want to make sure that as the Commissioner of Police, I am a commissioner for all. And therefore, if persons, by doing that, might not like what I'm saying, that's okay, because to me, problem is spelled POPLE. And once you have people, you find problems, because you can't please all the people all the time. Mm-hmm. You understand? So you have to understand what you're about. You have to do it to the best of your ability, and understand that at the end of the day, that whatever you do it not just as unto man, but as unto God. So I want God to be pleased with everything that I do at the end of my day.
Vince?
Yes.
Your closing thoughts.
No, I was caught up in that. Again, I could just stress, be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah. Be selfish, work on yourself.
Okay. Without adversity, you wouldn't know how strong you are. And without adversity, you wouldn't even be able to identify what weakness you have, so you could work on it. So even though sometimes you mightn't like it, this life is based on tests, a lot of tests, and look at it with gratitude and embrace it so that you could become the best version of yourself.
Not a lot more to add to that. Just that without tests, there's no testimony. And be careful what you ask for, what you put out into the universe. And remember, as we talk about knowing what your blessings are, recognizing it and seeing it and being appreciative of it, is very important, because in the same way you get it, the big man upstairs wants to hear and know that you are appreciative of it. And that's my belief. The simple things: waking up in the morning, running water, getting to use the bathroom, getting off the bed, having a roof over your head. So many things. Being in Trinidad and Tobago, is a massive blessing. Only when you go outside, sometimes you realize, and that's why people run home. Or they wear the red, white, and black, on their head. So know your blessings. Do what you can in whatever small part for your country in itself, whether it be, you see a bottle at the side of the road and put it in the dustbin. Drive with care. There's so many things that you can do to make this nation a much better place. And, charity begins at home. Let it start with you. Look at the man in the mirror. Today we're talking about adversity and the advantage, turning that into an advantage. And with that, Commissioner, I'd like you to have the last word to the nation.
Yes, and I want to say to Trinidad and Tobago, understand that life is, really what happens to you, but it's even more than that. Sometimes God will allow you to face a Goliath so that he can ensure that he bring and rise up inside of you a David. And sometimes you don't even know that inside of you there's such greatness. It starts in very small cycles, but as you continue to be the man that God has called you to be, a great David is coming up that will one day lead this nation. So be all that you could be with him.
Well, this is manhood. And, Commissioner, as you mentioned that, I can't help but think, when David called, when God called David to be king, he didn't give him a crown. He sent him Goliath.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is manhood turning adversity into advantages. Johanse, Commissioner Junior Benjamin, Robert Vincent Charles. Thanks for joining us.
Greetings. Well, it's your boy 420 Chris, and I representing for Manhood Spotlight. The name of the song here is God in Charge, because we just put God first, right through. So put God in charge. 420 again. Yeah. Check, me can't bother with them. Them build different people too deceitful. Rather step by myself. Them on a different meds. Color them mess up my head. The mount of stopping on my back. Me grow fed up a friend life. I teach lesson. You better learn something. Me give my heart to a girl. She mess around on the head. That's just another lesson. Pick up your book and pen. I recommend if you just put God in charge. See how your life I go change for the better. And if you put God in charge, I bet you nothing in the world will stop you. Check, and dirty bad man can't put 420 under pressure. Me have faith because me know the Father and I would desert me. Yeah, well alright then. So life might hard, but we never stop trying. And all praises me give to the Most High. Negativity can broke my vibes. Only God could save me in the darkest time. Who you feel it save me when my almost. And when me pray suicide, it's God change my mind. That's why I put God in charge. See how your life I go change for the better. And if you put God in charge, I bet you nothing in the world will stop you. Check, and dirty bad mind can't put CNC under pressure. We have faith because me know the Father and I could desert me. Yeah, check, you have to brace for the seasons. Life will rain on your crops with no reason. Yeah, but don't stop, keep moving. You want to reap your crops in right timing. Yeah, me know it might seem funny, but if you only faith and not let go, me bet your life I go working on your favor, So if you do the good things that I go, put God in charge. See how your life I go change for the better. And if you put God in charge, I bet you nothing in the world will stop you. And dirty bad man can't put KG under pressure. We have faith because we know the Father and I could desert me. Check, put God in charge. See how your life I go change for the better. And if you put God in charge, I bet you nothing in the world will stop you. Check, and dirty bad man can't put 420 under pressure. Me have faith because me know the Father and I could desert me. He never leave me yet.
Manhood, brought you in part by Reboot and Solomon's Bespoke.